My great pleasure to welcome Carl Schramm. He is the CEO of Kauffman Foundation, the organization that spreads entrepreneurship globally. If you don't know Kauffman by now, you should know. Carl, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. You are one of the sponsors for this conference.
Yes.
If not the sponsor. I want to talk a little bit before I go into the questions as for the audience to talk about Kauffman Foundation and how it's spreading entrepreneurship globally.
Well, the Kauffman Foundation, and I ought to say at the beginning, that's Kauffman, Kauffman.org. It's one of the busiest sites on the internet. And the reason it is because we focus on supporting entrepreneurship, both at the policy perspective, at the policy level, because our view, as we're hearing in the conference, is how important it is that the social matrix and the infrastructure and the political structure is supportive of entrepreneurs taking the risks and starting businesses. But also on our website are very practical rules for people who are actually in the business of starting businesses and ways to get to our various education programs as well. So the Kauffman Foundation is virtually all by itself in the world as a philanthropic institution helping to support entrepreneurship.
I want to expand on what we are doing as a conference here is using the State Department to promote entrepreneurship globally, and in these tough economic challenging times, I think is even more important.
Yes.
Your take on it?
Well, one of the reasons we were very pleased to support this conference is the outbound message of the United States in terms of entrepreneurship and our development of what I like to call entrepreneurial capitalism. I think is one of the most powerful levers we have in foreign policy, and it's one that many people in the State Department and the folks who create foreign policy in the United States, they're always a little less inclined to talk about economic things. They're not comfortable with economic things. They've been schooled in diplomacy and in military affairs. So our hope here is to generate in yeast a discussion where people are actually beginning to understand how important the nexus is between American foreign policy and American domestic policy, economic policy as it relates to entrepreneurship. So in many ways this is an exposure of the entrepreneurial economy that's in the United States to the State Department as a means to help people become familiar with the vocabulary and understand the value and importance of the State Department, then articulating this part of America outside, because our perspective is, and the perspective of many of the people who've already spoken at the conference, is that this particular aspect of the American drama, the development of entrepreneurial capitalism, which I basically suggest starts about 1980, has been transformative in the United States. It brings many people to the United States to try and understand what happened, anybody around the world who's interested in growth. And so it's important that we in the United States actually sharpen our understanding of what it is that people are coming to see.
You know, U.S. is, if not amongst the largest donors throughout the world. So one way is we give aid, the other is we give loans. And the third is entrepreneurship. So there's a good example with the Grameen Bank and Mohammed Yunus, what he has done. But it's still considered, it is empowering entrepreneurship at a grassroots level, but it is still a loan, looked upon as bank that is loaning money and helping a lot of people around in the developing world. But entrepreneurship takes a different focus.
Yes.
It is a very different ball game. And I wanted to understand from you why Kauffman Foundation focused so much on entrepreneurship and why do you think there's a need for entrepreneurship?
Well, I think we do that because of history, our understanding of history. And if there's anything we do at the Kauffman Foundation is we try to understand history as it is without an ideological varnish, if you will. And American history, our economic history, certainly in the last 25 years, is so clearly around the question of having brought growth to the levels at which we sustain it and productivity to the levels at which we sustain it through the efforts of people who created new companies. A statistic that I'll be speaking about later in the day, but it's one that will surprise your audience, it will surprise the audience in here, it would flabbergast people in Washington for the most part, is 1/3 of American gross domestic product is generated in firms that didn't exist in 1980. So, the question you ask is, the United States is very generous with aid. We do a great deal of loans, and we watch little models like Professor Yunus's model. I don't mean to demean it, but it's so far at the periphery, it has virtually nothing to do with development. These are all loan programs, as you point out, and we actually are on the other side of the coin. Loan programs without the idea and without the culture of entrepreneurship and without, in fact, the human capital to go invent will, in fact, be about as productive as our loan programs have been. That is, almost not productive, and they are susceptible to corruption. And at the end of the day, you don't see anything that's truly different. Or worse, if I could just say, the loan programs are often developed around a concept of foreign aid that relates to some vision of economic development that is almost Soviet in its notion, that it creates a planned vision of how an economy is supposed to work. And we've had 50 or 60 years of failure of trying to impose visions of how economies are supposed to work when we don't do that in the United States. Our economy works because we have no plan, okay? It is all ground up. But the minute the United States steps foot off of our shores to help other countries, we believe we will do top-down economic building. As I say, it's the antithesis of how our own economy works.
All right, Carl, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to be here.